Hi friends, it is Thursday and we are going to get through the rest of your math packets today. I need you to turn to page 26 in your math packet. Page 26 up at the top says measuring in inches and centimeters. Before we get started, I want to do a quick refresher on how big a centimeter and an inch are for comparison. I have made this little chart. A centimeter is about the same size as your pinky. Centimeters are small. So if you're building something with centimeter cubes, little tiny centimeters, you're going to need a lot of these to build something with, right? Because they're so small. So centimeters are the smallest unit that we're going to talk about today. The next smallest unit is an inch, okay? An inch is about 2.5 centimeters, okay? See how this is double what this is. The next biggest is a yard and then a meter stick. It's going to be hard for me to show you because I don't have a meter stick or a yard stick, but meters and yards are extremely long, okay? This is about how long a meter stick and a yard stick would be. Very, very long. So when we want to measure things that are larger, like my baby's crib behind me, for instance, I'm going to want to whip out my yardstick or my meter stick so that I can measure much more quickly because it's bigger. That way I don't have to use those little tiny centimeters to measure something very large. That would take a long time. So we are going to get started on page 26 today. Page 26 says, use a ruler to measure the length of the piece of tape in inches. So I'm hoping that you have a ruler at home and you remember that when you measure something, you must line it up with the 0 line on your ruler. I know it's going to be hard for you to see mine. Let's see, let's do it in inches. Okay, so if we look right here, this little tiny line at the very beginning, right here, okay, this little line right here, is our 0 line. Sometimes that line will say 0 below it, sometimes it won't. To measure something, you need to line that object. The beginning of the object is called its start point. You need to line this up with the 0 line, the beginning of the object with the 0 line on your ruler. See that line on my 0 line? On my ruler is lined up perfectly with this beginning of the centimeter cube. When I do that, I see that this is about 1 centimeter. If I were to do that with my worksheet, now mine is on the computer, so it might not measure up perfectly, but if I'm going to measure in inches, I'm going to line it up, and I'm doing mine on my computer, but if I were to measure this on my computer, how long is the length of tape? It's looking like mine may be about 3 inches, but since it's on the computer, it's hard to tell. I'm going to say about 3 inches for mine when I measured, but since yours is on actual paper and not the computer, yours might be a little different. So you're going to take your ruler and you are going to make sure for page 26 to take the inches side. Those are the bigger, see, these are bigger units. These down here, little tiny centimeters. You want the inch side of your ruler. You want to line up the benchmark, which is the very beginning of the object right there. You want to line it up with your ruler and see about how long each of those objects are on your page. Okay, so that is page 26. I'll let you do the rest. They ask for the shoe to be measured in centimeters. Okay, that's the smaller side of your ruler. The fish is also to be measured in centimeters, and they want you to measure the length. Okay, so you're going to start from the beginning of the fish, which looks like it's about right here is where the fish begins, all the way to the end of the fish, and you want to measure to the longest parts. So you want to start right here and keep measuring in centimeters until you get to his mouth, right about here. Next page. It says to use a ruler to measure the length of the string in inches and centimeters. So now for this string, you're going to use both sides of your ruler. You're going to measure it using inches first, and then you're going to flip it over to the other side of the ruler and use centimeters. I can't stress enough that you need to line up your 0 line on your ruler with the beginning the start point of the line. Okay, line it up perfectly. Number 6 is asking you to do the same thing, measure in inches and then in centimeters for the rectangle. On page number 28, page number 28 asks, circle the objects that are easier to measure with an inch ruler. Underline the objects that are easier to measure with a yardstick. Now I want to go back to my drawing that I made a while ago to show you how big each unit is. Okay, when we are measuring things that are small, okay, if we're measuring something that's small, like my phone's pretty small, this marker is pretty small, this eraser is pretty small. When we're measuring things that are small, we want to use centimeters or inches. Okay, that's what's most efficient, that's what's fastest. Now, when we're measuring something that's very large, we want to use something like a meter stick or a yardstick. Now, I don't have a long meter stick or yardstick, but I've taken this measuring tape to show you how big that would be. So once again, if you're measuring stuff that is small, like a marker or an eraser or a phone, you're going to want to use inches or centimeters on your ruler, okay? If you're measuring something that's big, like this bed behind me, like a person, okay, like a dresser, like a car, you're going to want to use something much bigger, like a big yardstick or a big meter stick. Now, let's see what our worksheet is asking us to do for the first one. Circle the objects that are easier. Circle the objects that are easier to measure with an inch ruler. Okay, what that means is they want you to think about this ruler, okay? This ruler and the inch side of the ruler, which is the bigger spaces in between. Which items would be easiest to measure with this inch ruler and which would be easier to measure with a big, long yardstick? A bike. Well, a bike is pretty big, so I would want to use a yardstick to measure the bike. So instead of underlining that, I'm just going to write yardstick above the bike. Since a bike is big, I want to use the big yardstick to measure because that's what's going to be fastest or most efficient. All right, a book. All right, guys, a book is a little bit smaller. I can just use my inches on my ruler to measure that, so I'm going to put an inch ruler. A leaf that I might find outside, that's pretty small. I'm going to want to use an inch ruler for that one also. A sticker that we might put on something that we have, a sticker. Stickers are pretty small, so it would make more sense for me to use a smaller inch ruler for that one also. A table is much bigger. You're going to want a bigger tool to measure with, which would be something like a yardstick. Okay, yardsticks, because they're so big, go all the way up to, yardsticks go all the way up to 36 inches. That means, that big yardstick that I was talking about, that means that a yardstick has 36 of these put together. So it's going to be really long. A big yardstick has 36 inches inside of it. This ruler only has 12 inches inside of it. This has 12 inches. A yardstick has 36. So if you're measuring something big, you're going to want to use a yardstick because it has much more inches inside of it. It's going to be faster to measure with. All right, question number 2. Let's decide whether we would use an inch stick or a yardstick for each of these. A window. Windows are pretty large. If it's large, I want to use a yardstick. A cracker, pretty small. If I'm measuring a cracker, I'm going to want to use an inch ruler. Okay, I'm going to have you do the rest with the marker, the blanket, and the tent. Okay, bigger things are going to be measured with yardsticks. Okay, that's much faster. If we tried to measure a tent with this ruler, it would take us a long time to do that. Okay, we'd have to put a lot of these rulers together to equal a tent, to try to measure a tent. So for this one, I know that's going to be a yardstick. We're not going to use a small inches ruler for a tent. Number 3, what is the length of the rectangle to the nearest inch? What we have to do is we have to look and see where the end point is. The end point is where the object ends. I have my highlighter right now on the end point. See where it ends? Now we have to look at the ruler. We've got 2 inches right here and 3 inches right here. Where is our end point closest to? Okay, here is our end point. Is it closer to the 3-inch mark, or is our end point closer to the 2-inch mark? Okay, is it closer to 3, or is this end point closer to 2? It is closer to 3. So we would say this is about 3 inches. It's about 3. We have to use the word about because it's not perfectly 3. Okay, if it was perfectly 3, it would be right here. But it's not, so we use the word about. It's about 3 inches. What is the length of the baseball bat? So now we are rounding out page 29. What is the length of the baseball bat to the nearest foot? Okay, well, in order to talk about feet, remember I said that there are 12 inches inside this ruler. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 inches inside this ruler. When something is 12 inches, so let's say I measured this board. This board is 12 inches. Instead of saying that this board is 12 inches, I could also say that it's 1 foot. So 12 inches equals 1 foot. Not the kind of foot that you walk with, but this is our measurement foot. So 12 inches, 12 small inches equals 1 big foot, okay? Now the reason I say that is because on problem 4, we've got this bat here, and they want to know about how many feet it is. If you look really closely, you'll see that the ruler has inches. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And right at the 12, because 12 inches equals 1 foot, you see they wrote 1 foot, okay? 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 12 more inches, that's 2 feet. Okay, so I could say that this bat is 24 inches, and that would be okay, but it would be easier for me to say that this bat is 2 feet. Same thing. See our end point? Our end point ends right here at the 24-inch mark, but 24 inches also equals 2 feet. So this bat is about 2 feet long. What's the length of this branch for number 5? How long is the branch? Well, they did a great job of lining up the beginning of the branch with the 0 point at the beginning of the ruler. And we need to go to the very end of the leaf branch, right here. Okay, we look at the very end of the leaf, right here, and we drop down to see how long. Okay, and it looks like they put 1 foot. So this branch is about, see how it ends right here at the 1 foot mark? 1 foot. And if you remember, I said that 12 inches equals 1 foot. So we could say that this branch is 1 foot, or we could say that it is 12 inches. Either one, they both equal the same thing. All right, on our last couple pages, they want you to look and decide, are these items measured with a centimeter ruler, which is the small little tiny lines on your ruler, or will you measure these items with a big long meter stick? The ruler only has 12 inches inside of it. A meter stick has 39 inches inside of it. So a meter stick is going to be much bigger. It's got 39 inches inside of it. This only has 12. So we're going to take big stuff like porches, and we're going to measure it with meter sticks because meter sticks are big, just like a porch. A spoon is smaller, so we're going to want to measure it with the smaller centimeter ruler. Okay, so you're going to decide which items need a centimeter ruler, which need a meter stick. I want you to go ahead and finish page 30 and 31 and let me know if you have any questions.